Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fantastic episode of the Boss It podcast. Today, I am super excited to have Gina on the show. Hello, Gina. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm delighted to be here with you.
I'm super excited you are here, Gina. So before we get started with your story, can you tell us what your mantra is?
I am enough. I have enough. I'm doing enough.
That's beautiful. I am enough, I have enough, and I'm doing enough. We do need to say that to ourselves more often, especially as women entrepreneurs or women leaders. We are always going for the next thing. But if we can take a moment and just say these verses to ourselves, I am enough, I have enough, and I'm doing enough. Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Tell us everything. How did you get to where you're at? I know you're a leader in business. I know you've started your own business. So tell us everything.
I ended up here quite unexpectedly. This was not part of the plan. So I actually run not one, but two businesses. And I can't stress enough that this was not part of the plan. I'll start with what the majority of the work that I do is. I'm a co-founder at Inside-Out Incubator. And Inside-Out Incubator is an organization that works with women who want to learn to lead powerfully on their own terms. And we do that by bringing groups of women together to learn from each other and essentially unfold a whole range of leadership flavors, aside from like what we conventionally see, because we believe that the world needs more of that.
Yeah, definitely. So when you say that you are helping women lead unconventionally, what does that look like? Like for me, I want to lead a team. How do I lead unconventionally?
It's such a good question. So may I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
We work with groups of women all the time. And a question we almost always ask is, what comes to mind when you think of conventional leadership? So like, Sophia, what comes to mind?
From my world of leadership, being in the hospital setting, it was very much a top-down approach in the hospital. Decisions are made. This is how it is happening. Sorry, there's not much room for discussion. That is what I've seen. Again, the world I have come from is a healthcare setting, and perhaps that was required for the situation that we were in. But it could be different for multiple environments.
And that's the thing about leadership is there are no rules. We have been sort of conditioned to think that the conventional way and business best practices, like there's one way to lead and it fits in every single context, but we know that that's not true. And so by your definition, Sophia, or what kind of how you think about conventional leadership, top down. And when you think of how you would like to lead or the leaders you look up to, I imagine that their approach is perhaps different than top down. So whatever that is for you, and it can be a little bit different for each person, we help women develop their own leadership best practices that are in alignment with who they are and what they value and what they want to create in the world.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful. Okay, how did you get here then? So you're now part of the Inside-Out Incubator as one of the co-founders. How long have you had that for, and how did you get to this point in opening up this incubator?
Yeah, so we have been at Inside-Out Incubator and we've brought together thousands of groups of women at this point in various settings and contexts. We partner with organizations to help them develop women's leadership programming, and we also offer programs to the public. Another part of the work that I do in the world is I'm an executive coach. So I've been doing executive coaching for about 8 years. So I run my own business there.
Beautiful.
To get there, my career path has really felt less like a path and more like meandering highway. Full speed ahead, going fast and hard. I had plenty of success on paper, but really a lot of the time I felt lost. My first career was actually as a performing artist. I pounded the Broadway pavement for almost a decade in my first career.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was in pursuit of a dream. And then I was surprised to find myself very burnt out. And I know this now in hindsight, though at the time I didn't realize. I've sort of always been driven by this question of, what does it take to do work that you love?
Right.
And I went about finding that in a myriad of ways. And ultimately, where I am now, I can happily say that I'm happier than I've ever been in my career. And the shift that I had to make to do that was to start asking myself a different set of questions. So in all the early iterations of my career, I was driven by, what do I need to do? what's the kind of recipe for my success out there? And I would ask mentors and look at different job postings I could fit into and maybe think about, well, what's the business I need to create? And the shift that I made partly through my studying of leadership and becoming a coach is, who do I want to be? What are my values? What's my purpose? What's the impact I want to have on the world? So when I started looking in this direction to find the answers to what's next, the action steps became crystal clear.
Right. Looking inside and asking yourself rather than looking outside for the answer and the validation.
Exactly. The organization's called Inside-Out Incubator. That's basically where it came from. Instead of, we're so conditioned to take our cues from out there about what we should do in business, how we should lead, what success looks like. But the truth is, like, it's personal. Success, even professional success, is very personal. And so if you don't take the time to start at least getting curious about what's happening in this direction, you're going to end up with more misses than you need.
100%.
This direction is actually way more reliable.
And I think more accurate sometimes as well. If you listen to your own instincts, you're generally going to hit the mark. Because I feel like external validation or people who may be providing you unsolicited advice that we often get when we're starting something new, like a business, it's someone else's fear being projected onto you. Can you give us some advice on how you are managing your time and your goals?
Time and the rhythm of your day is another thing that I find to be quite personal. So for me, what helps me be at my most productive is actually tuning into the natural rhythm of like when I work best.
Yes.
I've found that settings really matter. So for strategic, sort of longer tasks, I like to sit down and be at a coffee shop or be able to look outside. For like tasks that are more box checking tasks, those I like to be in my office and like super focused where I can just drill. So I kind of tune into other cues, both in my own natural rhythm and then based on where I work best, based on the activity. For me, that is what I have found works best.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Mental health and your well-being. Give us some tips. How are you keeping yourself going in those two domains?
So mental health, so important. And I actually think of it more in terms of like whole body health. Wholeness is a big value of mine. I want to take care of my mind and feel like I'm in tip-top shape and rest and all of those sort of physiological needs. But I also try to tune into, I think of it in terms of my mind, body, and spirit. And what helps me is actually the idea of nourishment. When I think about mental health and how I stay well as someone who's in a service providing industry, it's really a sort of check-in question for myself of what do I need to feel nourished today? When I am in the downs or in low productivity, is actually being okay with that and not beating myself up for it, because it's a natural sort of ebb and flow of any business that you run. So the expectation that you'll always be sort of like up here and operating like with all cylinders is not realistic. And the part where we shame ourselves for being not productive or not feeling inspired or not doing something at our 110% best,
right?
The degree to which we kind of beat up on ourselves for that's the unnecessary part.
This has been such a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for giving us all your words of wisdom, sharing with us the Inside-Out Incubator. Tell us where we can find you. And especially if any of our listeners want to avail your services, tell us how they can get a hold of you.
Please go to our website at insideoutincubator.com. We have a bunch of resources there, 2 free resources for you. We have a 7 rules that we find hold women back, a guide on tips and tricks on how to spot conventional leadership practices and to start to do things in a way that's more in line with what you want. You can download that on our website. And then the other thing we have is we have free monthly calls for how to handle it. And on those calls, we talk with brilliant women and myself and my co-founder, and it's all about how to handle the different things that come up, challenges that we encounter. We know that women are so resourceful and creative and have a bunch of knowledge and expertise. And as a business owner, as a professional woman, there's always new mysteries popping up. And so it's an hour dedicated to how to handle those things. Check us out on insideoutincubator.com and you can find both of those things.
Yay! Thank you so much, Gina. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Do you have any other last words for our listeners?
I am enough. I have enough, and I'm doing enough.
Yes, I am enough. I have enough, and I'm doing enough. I love it. Okay, guys, remember, make a plan and take action, and we'll see you guys again next week. Bye.
Bye.